A very good evening and welcome to English News Bulletin on Rwanda Television. We are glad you could join us. Let's begin with the headlines. In line with the national laws, members of the Electoral Council have urged the newly elected senators to assist the head of state in accelerating development, enhancing connectivity with the public. To economic matters, Rwanda's economy grew by 9.8% in the second quarter of 2024, with the service sector driving the growth. On the international scene, female genital mutilation has continued to endanger girls and women in Somalia. I am Olive Nete. It's a pleasure to have you join us. And now let's take a closer look at the news. In line with national laws, members of the Electoral Council have urged newly elected senators to assist the head of state in accelerating development, enhancing connectivity with the public, and advocating for various issues on their behalf. This Monday, elections were held across all provinces and in the city of Kigali for 12 senatorial positions. Nora Gladys kicks us off tonight.
Kigali City had 117 members of the Electoral Council who voted for one senator out of the 4 candidates who competed for the position of representing the city of Kigali in the Rwandan Senate. It was an election that did not take much time. The number of candidates and voters was small. The voters are members of the Kigali City and Sector Council offices. In Goma district, they also went to the senatorial elections. Some of the members of the Electoral Council asked the ones who will be elected to be more close to the people and make their voices heard where it does not reach. In Nyagatare, also the voters requested that senators should take special care of the uniqueness of agriculture. I expect them to be the voice to all the Rwandan citizens so that every Rwandan will have their suggestion fulfilled. In Goma district, I really wish that we should have a university. We really need it here in Goma. We expect them to maintain the basic principles, but also highly suggesting them to get closer to citizens so that they make advocacy for them in different challenges in districts and sectors. In Gisagara district and Huye, they also went for the senatorial elections. Some of the members of the Electoral Council in that region have also requested some key things to the senators who will be elected. In our agriculture sectors, the prices of resources is really high, so they can do advocacy for us so that the prices can reduce. We voted for them, really wanting them, and we even know their importance in these coming 5 years. So that's why we suggest that every concerning infrastructures and farming, they should take care of that. In Rusizi and Nyamasheke districts, they also went for senatorial elections. Nyamasheke residents and members of the Electoral Council point out that they expect change in development of this district that was always marked as the poorest district in the whole country because of not having enough infrastructures such as roads, which hinders residents to put their outputs to the market. I believe you know that Nyamasheke district is one of the poorest districts, and when you analyze, you find that it is caused by not having enough infrastructures, such as roads, so we suggest them to do advocacy for us to increase infrastructures and also investors. Honestly, we expect advocacy from senators because they normally get a time of going in all parts of the country to see the functioning of government programs, and they even do advocacy when they find something to be changed. In Gicumbi and Musanze districts in the northern province, for them, they requested senators to be elected to help the presidents of the Republic of Rwanda to boost the country's development and to put more effort in farming. We have a modernized farming, so there is a lot we appreciate that we achieved, but we also have some suggestions. We request that these senators, we voted to work with the President of the Republic to achieve all our suggestions. Our city is near the Kigali capital city. Our uniqueness of Gicumbi also, if our city would reach the development of Kigali city, it will be great. The head of the National Electoral Commission, Oda Gasinzigwa, points out that the general image in deputy elections and their performance during the campaign shows that all of them have the ability to base on the citizens' requests.
The campaign was good, and we are happy to see that we have the candidates who have good caliber and they have experience and a lot of experience in all different sectors. So we are happy to say that today we are going to be having the results, the provisional results for the 12 candidates, and tomorrow we are going to have elections for the universities and higher learning institutions, where we are going to elect 2 representatives of these special groups. And we also hope that afternoon tomorrow we'll be having a preliminary results for the universities and higher learning institutions.
Among the 12 elected senators in Kigali City, Northern Province will be represented by 2 senators, while all the other provinces will be represented by 3 senators, and Kigali City will be represented by 1 senate only. All the other 8 senators will be appointed by the President of the Republic. 2 will be elected from the public university schools and private ones. 4 will be appointed by the National Consultative Forum of Political Organizations. Enora Gladys, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Enora, for the details. Now let's change the subject to economic matters. Rwanda's economy grew by 9.8% in the second quarter of 2024, with the service sector driving the growth, contributing 47% to the country's gross domestic product, according to figures released by the National Institute of Statistics and Minecofin. Adams Kwizera files the report.
On Monday, the National Institute of Statistics and the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning announced the latest figures of the gross domestic product, GDP. The growth at the current market prices was estimated at 4,515 billion Rwandan francs, up from 3,972 billion Rwandan francs in the second quarter of 2024. The service sector contributed 47%, agriculture 25%, and the industry sector 21%. In these figures, it was highlighted that agriculture saw an overall performance, with food crops increasing by 8%, largely due to Season A 2024 production. However, the exportation of cash crops like tea and coffee experienced a 6% decline, mainly due to season factors. This reduction went back to back with one of the mining sector, as noted by Director General of the National Institute of Statistics, Ivan Murenzi.
Around this quarter 2, given the weather seasons, some of the mining activities are affected, especially in April and May, a bit half of May. So the other factor is always also around price expectations for mining, because mining is an activity where you can mine and store what we record is exports. So those 3 factors would explain what we see around mining. As regards to the growth and the prices, indeed this is where we see alignment, because if we talk of growth in agriculture, then we should see that inflation also has gone down. If we still had a high inflation, that would be a bit a conflict. But what we have seen is that with a good harvest of Season A, the prices of food crops have substantially gone down, and our basket of inflation is mainly made up of food. So if food is stable, general inflation will go down.
The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Yusuf Murangwa, noted that a positive trajectory across sectors should be maintained and built on to achieve the recently approved Second National Strategy for Transformation, NST2. He noted that this progress reinforces the promise of achieving the goal of 85% in service delivery as outlined in this NST2. This growth reflects the country's ongoing commitment to improving the quality of services, a key focus on its development agenda.
And what we are going to do is that in NST2, after cabinet approval and right on a Prime Minister's presentation to Parliament, we are now looking at the details to do 2 things. We are now looking at the details, one, to see how we think through implementation so that implementation can be quick. Implementation can be quick, especially with the projects that are going to be proposed for implementation, so that we see a fast track of increasing in capacities to deliver the services, in almost all these areas that we are talking about. But we also want to work with the private sector to see that the private sector also does its role, because there are so many things that need to be done by the private sector, especially as, for example, I said hotels and restaurants. We know hotels and restaurants are very important, especially in facilitating like tourism and MICE and everything. So this is a major role for the private sector. So a lot of engagement with the private sector, like serious fast-tracking implementation of the projects that we need to implement in NST2.
The National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda also announced that Rwanda's economy is projected to continue its upward trend with the projection of 6.6% growth in 2024, following the growth of 8.2% realized in 2023. Adam Squizera, RwandaTV News, Kigali.
Thank you, Adams, for the details. Now to judicial matters. Mujimba Jean-Baptiste, who is currently being prosecuted for his role in the genocide against the Tutsi, has requested the Court of Appeal to overturn his conviction and nullify the basis for his 25-year prison sentence. He seeks for the court to dismiss the grounds for his conviction. This request was made during the appeal hearing that began on Monday. We have details. On March 22, 2022, the Chamber of the High Court for International Crimes in Nyanza District sentenced Jean-Baptiste Mujimba, the former Secretary General of the CDR Party and the Central Bank of Rwanda employee, to 25 years in prison. This sentence followed his conviction for planning genocide. On the first day of his appeal hearing, Mujimba explained the reasons for challenging the court's decision. During today's hearing, the crime of conspiring to commit genocide, specifically being an accomplice to genocide and complicity in extermination as a crime against humanity, was addressed. This charge is based on the fact that on April 8, 1994, Jean-Baptiste Mujimba, who lived in Nyakabanda, Kigali, organized a meeting to plan the massacre of Tutsi. At this meeting, lists of targets were created and methods for obtaining firearms for the attack were approved. During the hearing in the Nyanza chamber, a witness named Adam, who participated in the meeting, provided detailed testimony about Jean-Baptiste Mujimba's role, and the witness described how Mujimba was involved in creating the list of Tutsi victims in Nyakabanda and how he provided firearms to the groups responsible for the killings. In his defense, Jean-Baptiste Mujimba denied the testimony of witness Dam, who cannot be named for safety reasons, calling it false. Mujimba and his lawyers, Gatera Gashabana and Baragogonza Jean Damascene, rejected Dam's claims of Mujimba's direct involvement in the crimes. They argued that the prosecution's assertion that councillors from Nyakabanda, Biryogo, Gitega and Nyamirambo attended the meeting contradicts Dam's testimony, which stated that no councillors were present. During the current hearing, Mujimba presented to the Court of Appeal that the prosecution in Nyanza ignored some arguments from his witnesses. He argued that his case is flawed and claimed that those accusing him of these crimes are seeking to seize his property without obstruction. Before he was sentenced to 25 years in prison, the prosecution had requested a life sentence for Jean-Baptiste Mujimba, arguing that the crimes he was charged with constituted a conspiracy. Mujimba has now asked the Court of Appeal to acquit him and reopen the case, arguing that the prosecution failed to present evidence sufficient to convict him of plotting genocide and being an accomplice to genocide and extermination as a crime against humanity. This time, the court noted that Mujimba did not challenge the basis for the reduced sentence. Jean-Baptiste Mujimba, who served as the General Secretary of the CDR Party and worked at the Central Bank of Rwanda from 1982 to 1994, was arrested in the Netherlands and extradited to Rwanda in 2016. Since the beginning of the trial, Mujimba has consistently denied any involvement in the genocide. The case will continue on Wednesday, with the prosecution expected to have the opportunity to reinforce the evidence used in Mujimba's trial. Moving ahead, on Monday, the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement received a grant of 130 million Rwandan francs. This funding will be used to enhance the preservation of the memories of the genocide against the Tutsi and to educate the youth who represent a significant portion of the Rwandan population about this history. Prince Manzi with more.
Apart from the Kigali Genocide Memorial, other monuments do not have proper ways to preserve memories of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Survivors of the genocide and visitors of the memorials outline this as an issue. Genocide survivors commemorating their loved ones, even those who were thrown in waters, we remember them. We leave flowers in waters because we believe that their bodies are still there, as no one came to remove them. Preserving memories of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 is one of the responsibilities of the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement. This ministry affirms that this grant will help in enclosing the gap in the genocide history outreaching, and it will help in teaching history to the youth for them to fight against deniers of the genocide against the Tutsi. Minister Jean Damascene Bizimana reiterates the such grant has been contributing heavily in preservation of memories.
Dufite ubuhamya bw'abantu hari ubwafashwe hari n'ubutarafatwa ugasanga abantu barasaza.
The gap is still there. First, we have testimonies which were recorded and others which were not recorded, and you find that people died later, or even if they are alive, one can forget. It happens, and that is why the ministry reinforces this. In addition, we have to adapt to the new technologies, and also we are working on how memories can be virtually visited wherever one could be in the world. As soon as we are done collecting our memories, and we'll start with the Bisesero Genocide Memorial. Minister Bizimana adds that Rwandans at large are to contribute in preservation of memories of the genocide against the Tutsi. Rwandans visiting the memorials are still on the lower rate. We are working on how students, while learning history, they have to visit memorials in the districts they are in. It is our role to know our history. You cannot be knowing all on the processes that led to the genocide, so informing is critical to fight against deniers. It is expected that this new method of storing and preserving the memories of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda will be included in the 7 monuments at the national level, starting with the Ntarama Genocide Memorial in Bugesera district.
Thank you, Prince, for the details. Now back to judicial matters. The Rwanda Investigation Bureau urges the public to promptly report gender-based violence and to preserve the evidence to support victims in obtaining justice. We have details on the story.
Munyankindi Monique, chairperson of Haguruka, a non-governmental organization dedicated to defending and promoting the rights of women and children, highlights that some victims of gender-based violence fail to receive justice due to insufficient evidence. Sometimes, when reviewing a case in court, particularly a violence case, it is clear and well known what has happened. However, the challenge often lies in the evidence. You may find that the evidence presented does not accurately point to the true perpetrator. Healthcare providers in hospitals with Isange one-stop centers are currently the only ones equipped to collect and preserve crucial evidence used in justice for children and other victims of gender-based violence. However, the loss of some evidence has prompted authorities to begin training additional nurses to provide necessary support when needed, according to Mutoni Merab, gender-based violence officer at the Rwanda Biomedical Center. If you look at the number of nurses in hospitals, it is quite large. Our country's goal is for all nurses to have equal knowledge about preserving evidence so that any person who has experienced violence can receive immediate assistance without delay. A total of 96 nurses from 48 hospitals have begun training to assist doctors in collecting and preserving evidence of sexual violence for legal proceedings. This training aims to address the gaps they encounter in their daily work, equipping them with necessary skills to support justice efforts.
Yes, there is knowledge we gained while we're still studying. However, through our daily work, we've identified that we need knowledge beyond what we already have.
When a patient arrives at the hospital, the first person they often encounter is a nurse. It is essential to provide them with adequate information about how they can be assisted and guide them on how to preserve any evidence. Dr. Murangira Thierry, spokesperson for the Rwanda Investigation Bureau, notes that the efforts to find and preserve evidence crucial for delivering justice to victims of gender-based violence are being of a great importance.
Some young boys experience sexual violence at the hands of older girls, and they too come forward with complaints. When receiving victims, we do not differentiate based on gender. All are treated equally. Men are also becoming more courageous in coming to Isango One Stop Center to file complaints, and those women responsible are being prosecuted. We are continuing to preserve evidence with the goal of ensuring justice.
According to the Rwanda Investigation Bureau statistics, over the past 2 years, 19,648 people have experienced sexual violence, with 10,439 of these being children under 18 years of age.
Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. Have a productive and fruitful week ahead. Goodbye.